revenge. For us. For us. For us.
My name is Noelle Sanford. I'm 32, a community college librarian. That afternoon, the lodge smelled like fur and expensive soap, with smoke, linen starch, the kind of clean that says someone paid extra for it. The resort's great room glittered with fairy lights and linen napkins, while laughter rolled like a warm, practiced tide. I felt every staged smile like a temperature change. They didn't notice me until it was convenient. "Could you fetch more towels?" an aunt asked without looking up, handing her phone to a teenager who already had 3 devices balanced against his palm. My step-cousin Taylor nudged past me to get better light for a selfie, the flash popping like impatience. Later, when the family photographer called for the immediate family picture, someone, Eleanor as usual, said soft as velvet, "Keep it family, only this year." I smiled and stepped back. I didn't answer the small, sharp things. I had learned to catalog them instead. The deliberate omissions. The way glasses paused near mouths, as if someone might forget to include me in a toast. The way a laugh would go round the table and miss me like a skipped record. These were the quiet tools they used to make me small. But what they thought was marginal was method. And method has seams. At midnight, I was folding napkins in the back hallway when I heard voices through the open ballroom doors. Hushed, precise. They were talking about signatures, about removing a name from a family agreement, about finalizing papers on Sunday before anyone questioned it. I froze, not because I was shocked, because I wasn't surprised, because these were the exact noises of people polishing an erasure. For a moment, I let the laughter and the piano become background noise. I let my hands keep moving. I kept folding. Before I tell you the rest, tell me where you're listening from. I like knowing I'm not the only one who's ever been left out of the photo. They thought I was filing napkins. They had no idea I was filing everything else. You're watching True Revenge, where every betrayal gets what it deserves. I pushed the towel into a neat square and walked toward the back door. They assumed they were alone with the plan. They were about to discover how wrong that assumption was. I didn't grow up in the mountains, but I always liked the way Denver felt at dawn, cold enough to make you breathe deeper, bright enough to make everything look sharper than it really is. My mother used to say the altitude revealed things people tried to hide. "You can't pretend to be someone else when the air is this thin," she'd laugh. She died when I was 25. After that, her side of the family became polite, civil in public, detached in private. They invited me to events the way companies send newsletters. Out of habit, not intention. But I kept going. Maybe because it felt like proximity to her. Maybe because I was too stubborn to let distance rewrite the truth. Or maybe because I kept hoping someone would look at me and see more than a placeholder. When my mother was alive, I used to help her in the tiny local library she ran near Capitol Hill. She taught me to file returns by instinct, to memorize sequences, to spot patterns in misshelved books. I didn't realize until much later that she was teaching me how to read people the same way. I carried those habits into adulthood, saving receipts, organizing conversations in my notes app, screenshotting small things that felt off. Not for leverage, just for clarity. My extended family, the Sanfords, owned several boutique mountain lodges stretching from Boulder to Breckenridge, the kind of places that look rustic on postcards, but cost more per night than my monthly rent. They liked to call themselves a heritage hospitality family. I always thought that was a poetic way of saying old money that hasn't run out yet. My place in their world was a curious one. They liked my mother. She fit their image. Me, less so. I reminded them she died young and left nothing behind. Still, I helped quietly when I could, designing flyers, rewriting guest manuals, repairing their broken booking spreadsheets. Little tasks that kept things moving. Lucas, my cousin, once said, "You're practically staff anyway." He laughed after, as if it softened the blow. It didn't. But I learned something that day. When people show you the hierarchy they believe in, they rarely realize they've exposed their weakest angle. This reunion at the mountain resort was supposed to be a reset year, according to the group email, a chance to reconnect after too much time apart. They booked out the entire lodge, invited extended relatives from Seattle, Dallas, even a few from Boston. Every room was filled with loud families, curated outfits, and the faint competitive joy of people who like to measure each other's accomplishments. I arrived early and helped set tables, mostly because no one told me not to. By evening, I already felt the familiar ache of being in a crowd where every smile had a script. And yet, there were things this time that felt different. More closed doors, more whispers, more glances that slid past me too quickly, as if they were checking whether I'd caught something they hoped I hadn't. If I'd been paying attention that first night, I might have understood sooner. But truth has a way of stacking itself, quietly, page after page, until one day, the binder snaps open on its own. The first crack appeared the morning of the family hike, a tradition they insisted on preserving even though half of them spent more time photographing the trail than walking it. I was pouring coffee in the lodge kitchen when I heard footsteps behind me. Light, quick, almost rehearsed. "Noelle, honey," Vivian said, adjusting her pearl scarf as if the mountains were a runway. "We need everyone to meet in the West Hall for the group briefing. Family only." She didn't look at me when she said it. The same phrasing, the same tone, the same dismissal wrapped in polite velvet. I placed my mug down. Am I not part of everyone now? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, it's not like that. This part is just logistics. Formalities." But she moved toward the door before I could reply, as if my existence were a coat she'd brushed past on her way out. 5 minutes later, the double doors closed. I stood outside them, listening to muffled conversation swell and fade like ocean waves hitting a cliffside. Laughter. A toast. My name once clipped uneasy, followed by a hush. I shouldn't have heard that, but I did. At brunch that afternoon, the subtle shift sharpened. Seats were filled before I reached the table. No one made space. My stepsister Taylor, who had once begged me to redesign her resume for a dream job she never landed, glanced at me, then pretended her water glass needed immediate attention. Even the younger cousins avoided eye contact, mimicking the adults with frightening precision. I ended up at a small table near the back, sandwiched between a ficus plant and a decorative canoe paddle, a symbolic position, if ever there was one. A server approached and set down the prefix menu. "For the staff table," she said kindly. Staff. The word shouldn't have hurt, but the way she said it, hesitant, apologetic, told me exactly what the family had instructed her to believe. I folded the menu once, then twice, then aligned its edges with a precision I couldn't explain. Across the room, the main table clinked with champagne flutes. Someone made a speech. Someone else mentioned the resort booking. How generous it was, how thoughtful, how the Sanford family always knows how to treat their own. Their own. The phrase crawled under my skin like ice. During the afternoon family circle, they formed a wide semi-ring of chairs on the lawn. I approached, expecting at least one person to wave me over. No one moved. Vivian, elegant, practiced, her sunglasses reflecting the mountains behind me, placed a manicured hand on the empty chair beside her. Then she slid it 2 inches to the right, tightening the formation just enough to close the gap. A physical barrier. Small but intentional. Maybe you can help with the outdoor heaters, she said smoothly. It gets cold during the evening reception. We want everything perfect. Perfect. A word people use when they need a scapegoat if things go wrong. I nodded once, not agreement, just acknowledgement, and turned toward the patio. As I walked away, I heard Wesley mutter, not quietly enough. Why does she even come? She's not one of us. There it was. Honest. Unvarnished. The truth they had been orbiting all weekend. And something in me aligned, not broken, not bruised. Aligned. A clarity that didn't flare like emotion, but settled like architecture. Their hierarchy was a script. Their cruelty was a pattern. Their exclusion was a blueprint. And blueprints can be rewritten. I tightened my coat, letting the cold air steady me. They thought distancing me would keep the power structure intact. They didn't realize they were handing me the perfect vantage point to see all their fractures. The evening air in the resort had a strange metallic stillness to it, the kind that settles in after a day of practiced smiles and quiet humiliations. I walked the back corridor near the service wing, pretending to look for the patio heater controls like Vivian suggested. She hadn't asked because she needed help. She'd asked because it kept me out of sight. My phone buzzed. Maya Rios. My anchor, even from hundreds of miles away. Maya, you okay? You went dark. Me, family reunion. Maya, that bad. Me, predictably. But she heard the weight under my voice. Maya, check your email. Something new popped up. It's weird. My breath tightened. Maya didn't call things weird. She called them wrong, illegal, or avoidable. Weird meant something else. I stepped into a narrow alcove between linen carts, the only place in the service hall with halfway decent signal, and opened my inbox. A forwarded thread sat at the top. Subject: Sanford household, financial clearance update. At first, it looked routine. Then the names hit me. Vivian, Taylor, Wesley, all CC'd, all replying, approved. My brows tightened. What were they approving? I tapped the PDF. Authorization for limited financial control. Sanford family cohort. Signature, Noel Sanford. Except, it wasn't my signature. Not even close. The angle, the pressure, the flow. All wrong. A forgery. For a moment, my chest felt hollow. Not panicked, just stunned by the precision of the lie. They weren't just excluding me socially. They were erasing me structurally. Footsteps approached. 2 resort staff members passed by carrying an envelope with the Sanford crest, cream paper, gold embossed. The younger one paused when she saw me. Oh, this got left in the wrong meeting room. She handed it over casually, but the moment it touched my hands, something in me tightened. Inside was a seating chart, not the public one taped to the event board, a different one, the one I wasn't meant to see. Their table, family circle, my position, staff coordination, not a misunderstanding, not a clerical error, a deliberate classification, a designation, a label meant to stick. Before I could swallow that, another notification hit my phone. A voicemail from Aunt Tessa. We hadn't spoken in 3 years, not out of animosity, out of avoidance. She drifted from the Sanfords long before I realized why. I pressed play. Noelle, if you're still with them, you need to be cautious. I found something in your mother's old paperwork. Something they never intended you to know. Call me back as soon as you can, before they do. Her voice cut off abruptly, as if someone approached her. The walls seemed to shift. The humiliation at breakfast, the exclusion at the family circle, the whispers, none of it had been petty. It had been preparation. They were building a narrative where I wasn't part of the family. Because soon, They needed paperwork that relied on that not being contested. And the only thing more dangerous than being underestimated is being intentionally written out. I closed the chart, folded the forged PDF, replayed Tessa's message in my mind. For the first time that weekend, my heartbeat steadied, not with acceptance, but with understanding. They weren't protecting the family. They were protecting a secret, and secrets always leave fingerprints. I returned to my room just before sunset, the sky over Lake Tahoe fading into a muted wash of lavender. The resort was quiet, families drifting toward the bonfire pit, children laughing somewhere near the waterline. All of it felt like background noise to the quiet storm building inside me. I spread everything out on the desk. Tessa's voicemail, the forged authorization form, the seating chart labeling me staff, old emails I'd archived but never deleted, subtle digs, quiet exclusions, accidental omissions. Individually, they were irritation. Together, they were architecture, evidence of intent. Maya called as I was arranging the pages into a timeline. "You're organizing, aren't you?" she asked. She knew me too well. "It's time," I said. "Not revenge. Not yet. Just clarity." We built a plan in pieces. Step 1. Tessa. Her warning wasn't a coincidence. She had documents, real ones, buried long before Vivian married my father. I needed them. Step 2. Cross-check every financial authorization in the last 12 months. If they forged one signature, they forged more. Step 3. Determine why they were rewriting my role, socially, legally, financially. Exclusion isn't random. It's preparation. Step 4. Stay silent. Let the family think the humiliation worked. Let them believe I'd folded. Silence has a way of making guilty people confident, and confidence makes them sloppy. Before I hung up, Maya exhaled softly. "You okay?" "I'm steady," I said. Not angry, not hurt, just steady, like someone finally seeing the blueprint instead of the facade. I slid the forged document into a protective sleeve and locked it into my bag. They wanted me erased from the family narrative. Fine. They forgot the person holding the receipts always writes the ending. The pavilion lights glowed amber as the sun dropped behind the ridge, painting the sky in deep, bruised purples. Guests drifted beneath the heaters, sipping wine and admiring the mountain view, blissfully unaware that the evening's calm was about to fracture. Vivian stood in the center of it all, wrapped in navy silk, greeting investors like royalty. Lucas and Grant flanked her, laughing loudly, trying too hard. They believed tonight was a celebration of their legacy. They had no idea they were standing inside mine. I stepped onto the small platform by the fire pit. The mic wasn't necessary. The hush that followed was instinctive. "Good evening," I said, my voice steady. "Since there's been some confusion today about who arranged this reunion, let's clear that up." Vivian's smile tightened. "Noelle," she whispered sharply, "this isn't your moment." "It is," I replied. A staff member wheeled a presentation monitor beside me. Another handed me a silver-edged folder. Guests exchanged glances. "This entire resort," I said, "is part of Redwood Hospitality's private portfolio." A murmur, confusion, a few raised eyebrows. "And Redwood Hospitality," I continued, "belongs to me." The reaction spread like a shockwave, small gasps, startled turns, a fork dropping onto a plate. "That's impossible," Lucas blurted, stepping forward. "Dad never." "Dad did," I said, 12 years ago." The monitor lit up behind me, revealing a scanned document. The deed transfer, signed by my father, notarized, and legally filed long before Vivian ever joined the family. Vivian stumbled a half step. That should have been in the estate filings. "It was," I said. Not my fault you never read the pages that didn't benefit you. Grant crossed his arms, trying to regain control. So what? You own the property. Big deal. I opened the folder. The next document appeared on the screen. Vivian's forged signature. Grant's fraudulent authorizations. Lucas's internal messages about temporary reallocation. Their color drained, in unison. These, I said calmly, are the transactions you hoped I'd never find. Grant's jaw clenched. Those were clerical errors. No, I said softly. They were intentional diversions from my inheritance account, and because they involved my assets, I held his gaze. They fall under federal jurisdiction. Grant's face went white. Lucas's hands curled into fists he didn't dare use. A long-time investor, someone who had toasted Vivian earlier, stepped forward, his expression dark. You let us believe you were funding this reunion, he said, staring straight at Vivian. But it wasn't your money, was it? Vivian opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Silence draped the entire pavilion. Heavy, revealing. No place for her charm to hide. Then the smallest voice broke the quiet. Mom, you said she was nothing. Taylor, Vivian's daughter, stared at her with wide, trembling eyes. Vivian reached toward her. Taylor, sweetheart. I stepped forward, my tone quiet enough that only those nearest could hear, but sharp enough to cut. You tried to erase me. I murmured. But all you did was hand me the perfect trail of evidence. Grant swallowed hard. What do you want? I straightened, letting the tension settle exactly where it needed to. I want honesty, I said, and consequences for every decision you made behind closed doors. The monitor dimmed. My attorney Raphael stepped forward, closing the folder with a quiet finality that echoed louder than any threat. No shouting, no vengeance speech, just truth delivered with surgical precision. Around us, conversations broke into anxious whispers. Investors pulled out phones. Guests exchanged wide-eyed looks. Even the resort staff paused, witnessing the collapse of the family who'd strutted through the halls hours earlier with manufactured superiority. Vivian reached out one last time, not to apologize, but to salvage the only identity she had left. Noelle, we can fix this privately. Please. It stopped being private, I said, when you decided I didn't count. Behind her, Lucas finally broke, his voice cracking. She planned all this from the beginning. No, I replied. You planned the betrayal. I simply refused to let it stay buried. Every spotlight shifted off them. Every illusion burned away. The Sanfords hadn't just lost control. They'd been exposed, publicly, irreversibly, in the exact place they hoped to showcase their power. Tonight wasn't their celebration. It was their unveiling. In the days that followed, the mountain air felt different, cleaner, lighter, as if the entire ridge had exhaled with me. The resort staff still moved quietly through the halls, but their glances toward me had changed. Not curiosity, not pity, recognition. They finally understood whose signature held the place together. Vivian and her sons checked out before sunrise the next morning. No dramatic exit, no final confrontation. Just 3 silhouettes dragging suitcases across the gravel path, the weight of reputation heavier than anything they carried in their hands. Investors had already begun their inquiries. Lawyers had already begun their calls. And the family who told anyone who'd listened that I wasn't one of them suddenly had to answer for every ledger entry they'd hoped would stay buried. I didn't chase them. I didn't watch them leave. Instead, I sat on the balcony overlooking the water, a mug warming my hands, the sky pulling itself into a slow pale gold. Someone had once said that dawn in the mountains makes everything honest. I finally understood that. Raphael joined me for a moment, setting down a stack of neatly organized binders, the kind of order my mother would have appreciated. It's done, he said quietly. It needed to be, I replied. Not triumphant. Not vindictive. Just true. The family reunion ended 2 days early. Most guests stayed, enjoying the space without the tension that had been brewing beneath every toast. A few approached me to apologize, not for what they'd done, but for what they hadn't noticed. That felt closer to sincerity than anything I'd ever been offered by the Sanfords. As I walked the property that last evening, the lanterns flickering along the path, I felt something settle inside me. Not revenge, not victory, just room to breathe. They spent years insisting I didn't belong. Now I understood the truth. I never needed their place. I had built my own. You've been watching True Revenge, where pain becomes purpose, and purpose builds its own future.